My name's Colin Kinner. I'm the founder and CEO of Startup OnRamp. We've been running an online incubator program for over 8 years now. We're Queensland-based. We have the privilege of having worked with over 2,000 startups in that period of time. Our guest for today's webinar is Voulla Fronis, founder and CEO of a company called Gellibn, which you're going to hear more about shortly. Voulla is one of our alumni and is doing great things, so I thought it'd be a great opportunity to invite Voulla to come and talk about her journey as an entrepreneur and some of the learnings. This is part of our Female Founders program, as I mentioned, and that's a program that's supported by the Queensland Government through the Advanced Queensland Initiative. And thanks to that support from the Queensland Government, we're able to offer free startup mentoring, free online learning, and free cohort-based pre-accelerator programs over the next 2 years to about 200 female founders spread around all of Queensland. So my job is really good fun. I get to spend my week working with really smart people, cooking up really interesting businesses. So this is good fun. So before we get started, I'll just remind everyone that I'm recording this webinar. We're going to post it on the website for anyone who's not able to join in real time. I want to allocate some time for Q&A at the end. And given that we have a small group, which might grow a little bit, I do want to keep it informal. So I was going to say, let's hold off right to the end for questions. But why don't we just make it a conversation? So if at any point in proceedings you have a question or a comment or you'd like to ask Voulla something, can I just suggest either press the raise hand button at the bottom of your Zoom screen or just unmute and yell out, "Hey, Voulla, I've got a question." Is that all right?
It's fine with me.
Cool. What else? So I'm going to ask Voulla to lead off. So Voulla, I know a bit about your business, quite a bit about it actually. It's been interesting watching it evolve over the last little while. But I'd like you to kind of rewind and go back to the very start. So you've been working on Gellibn for 3 and a bit years now. Probably the idea has been percolating for a lot longer than that. I'd really like you to just talk us through how you started the whole journey as an entrepreneur. And I know you've run several successful businesses previously, but what got you to the point where you said, "Hey, I'm going to start a tech company. I'm going to start something where we're going to build an app, we're going to deploy it, and we're going to, over time, get lots of businesses using it"?
Well, Colin, thank you for having me, by the way. Firstly, I actually, at the time when I decided to start Gellibn, in my mind, I didn't think I was starting a tech company. That was not my perception. I thought I'm just going to create a solution for this problem that I'm aware of. So a little bit about my background. Most of my professional life, I've been around the service industries. So started with the hair industry, then it went into retail, fresh food retail, etc. I did build and scale a couple of businesses successfully and exited. But one of the areas that I worked in all of those businesses was around staff management and people. That is my passion when it comes to running a business or even working in a business, because I do believe that a business's greatest asset is its team members, because they make it happen. They contribute to the success of the business. And I have to be honest, because it was my passion, I did that very, very well. But I did that very well intuitively because I knew what it took. I knew what I had to do to get the team to perform the way that I needed them to, and making sure that they felt valued, but they also grew within the business. And then my career led me to helping other business owners in achieving that, because I had great success in doing that. Whenever I heard someone say, "Oh, bloody staff, I've got staff headaches and I really don't know how to navigate through the staff thing." And so I always thought, well, I know how to do that. And I've been successful in doing that. So let me show you how to do this. And this was, back in the hairdressing industry, where I helped a lot of salon owners and their teams be successful. And then when I exited that, I got into the fresh food business, retail. business. And again, we had over 100 staff, and that was my job, making sure that the staff were managed correctly. And I kind of knew it, but it was first-hand experience that no matter what industry you're in, if it's a service-based industry, everyone has those challenges. And although I could help a number of people that I could liaise with face to face, I thought to myself, this is a real challenge that has been a challenge over the years, from when I was 15, when I started working in that industry, in the hair industry, to now. I won't tell you how old I am, but it's still an issue. And why? It's actually not that hard. So I thought if I could help a handful of people that I have access to, what if I could help everybody? What if I could help more people to achieve this, not just for them, but for their team members? And so that's what initially had triggered me to come up with a solution. And then I went on to thinking, well, how can I bottle what I've been doing that's been so successful into a product or something that they can use to achieve the same success? And initially, it was going to be like a software program, and I went out and interviewed some business owners that would use it, that were my potential customers. And out of doing the
Oh, I like to hear that. I really do. I see so many people that just take a guess. So interviewing business owners is good.
well, I have a lot to say about that.
Hmm.
So I
Come
can
back to that for sure.
I'll come back to that because that is key. That is very important. And it's something that I'm doing now. And actually went back and refined how I'm doing this now on a different level, because it has to be more than just a customer persona. And it's got to be a different mindset when you are working with developing a product that somebody else is going to use. So I did that, and after that, I decided that it has to be quick, it has to be easy, it has to be something they can use on the go, and so that's why I decided to develop an app. So again, my mindset at the time was not, I'm going to start a tech company. My mind frame was, I'm going to create a solution, and that solution is going to be an app.
Hmm.
So, how do I create an app? So, in my head, it's a product. And in my head, you create the product, you get it to work the way that you think it should work, and then you uh, get customers to use it.
Hmm.
And you and I know that it's not that simple. So I set out to find out what's involved in building an app, and not being a tech founder, I reached out to my business network, not realizing there is a startup network out there that I could have connected with. And so I did find a developer locally in Sydney. And we went through the process of my idea, and doing a little bit more research, putting the design together, and then proceeding to build an MVP. At the time, I had another business that I was running. So I dreamt of the idea just over 3 years ago, but for the first at least year and a half, my mind was divided between running my business and bringing this to life. That was another key learning as well.
Right.
So
You also just used a term a minute ago, and I always get pulled up for this, so I'm going to pull you up for it. What's an MVP? What does that stand for?
minimum viable product.
Cool. So how did you view the MVP? Like in your mind, what was the MVP of your app?
Oh, well, I know what it is now.
Hmm.
I didn't know back then.
Hmm. Okay.
So again, in my mind, I didn't realize there was so many things that I didn't know that I didn't know, and that was one of them.
Hmm.
I do know now that tech never ends. The product is never perfect. The
Hmm.
product is never finished. And it'll keep evolving. And I've already dreamt of what it's going to look like in 10 years' time.
Hmm.
But at the time, I didn't know that. I thought you build a product, the product works, you sell the product. That's not how it works. So, so really, an MVP at that stage was a working app that I could take out and show the customer, potential customers, hey, I've created this. I think it's going to make your life easier. This is how it's going to make your life easier. This is how you use it, etc. But an MVP, I know now, could be a sketch or a PowerPoint presentation where you just
Sure.
how it works.
Yeah, for sure. So that's really helpful in terms of how and why you got started. So a couple of things that I wanted to jump into in a bit more detail. Like one in particular is before we even get on to building the product or the MVP, what were your insights as a founder? Like having managed teams in various businesses and like you say, having worked with lots of other businesses in the hairdressing industry, like you had that kind of experience in helping them function well as teams. What insights did you bring to it in terms of what's broken? Like what are the things that you said, oh, look, I keep seeing this problem again and again, and we've got to fix that.
I think it's specific to those sort of industries when you look at the way that those industries operate. If we start with, it's a very casual employment environment. So if we start with the staff, for example, let's just say in a retail environment like I used to run, which is again different to a hair salon, but let's just say a retail or a cafe restaurant. You've got a diverse city of staff that may be different ages, different levels of experience. For example, for us, we had school students that maybe did a shift after school and on weekends. We had uni students, which they needed a part-time or a casual job just to make ends meet. Then you had more senior. You might have a mum that is looking for a few hours while the kids are at school. So everyone is at different level of skill. It's not really a career path, but there's still certain expectations to be met when you are at work. So in that sort of environment, for example, the way that most people are employed is you come in, you do a trial. Yep, we like you. Here's your roster. Start on Monday. Team up with this buddy. They'll show you what to do. So there's no formal induction process, but the expectations are still there as an employee to perform. You need to serve customers in a specific way. You need to follow up on things. You need to know your product. Or the communication. I remember we had a communication book where the girls at the register used to come in 10 minutes earlier and open up a handwritten notebook to bring themselves up to speed before they start their shift.
Wow.
Everybody does it differently. But
Yeah. I mean, that to me is always a massive sign that here's an industry or in this case, an individual business that really, really needs help to modernize and automate things, handwritten notebooks or crappy spreadsheets or whiteboards, in the business. Those kinds of things are usually a really good sign that there's scope to do it better.
yes, however, the business owner is also the HR manager and the bookkeeper and the marketeer and everything. Because think about it this way, they're a small business, service-based, they serve customers every day. Unless, of course, they're like, a massive franchise where they've got more systems in place. So, so they're not big enough for a HR manager and they're not big enough for a HR platform that needs a HR manager. They do a lot of their HR tasks themselves. They do the wages, they do the rosters, etc. Or if they have multiple locations, they have a manager who does the rosters, etc. But that's as far as systemized as they go. And then you have, say, in the hair industry, it's more creative. It is career-based. But again, that is such a creative, passionate industry. It's about your skill. There's a lot of focus on the skill. And when you look at a lot of those business owners, they start the business because they're passionate about what they do and they're really good at what they do. So because they are so good at what they do, they decide to make a business out of it. So then they start a business because they're good at their skill. And then all of a sudden they have staff
Mm-hmm.
to manage, and they don't have experience in managing staff. They have
Yeah.
experience in teaching their staff their skill, but now they have to get their staff to see their business vision and to perform the way that they envision the staff to perform, and they envision how the customer is going to feel coming into their salon. So the staff need to see that as well. But that's, and there is, there are some that do it okay, and there are some that don't do it at all.
Yeah. So interesting. So the Jelly app is, in a way, it's kind of upskilling the manager or the owner of the business and enabling them to do a better job of managing their team. So it's not just like a tool in the sense that you got a messaging app and you can send messages to people or whatever. It actually provides some of that kind of structure and kind of best practice. Would that be
Look,
fair?
yes, yes. It encourages them to set their skill expectations and make sure that everyone's on the same page. That the staff, because staff are not mind readers unless you tell them what. And also, they also want to know how they're going. Am I doing a good job? Is
Hmm.
my is my boss happy with what I'm doing or not? And,
Yeah.
and we see this now on the feedback that they provide through Gellibn when someone gets a praise,
Hmm.
on something they've done really well, and the excitement that we see from the staff, the fact that someone has taken out some time to let them know that they're doing a great job, is it's very rewarding. But
Hmm.
back to your point, I actually had a customer yesterday say to me, "This is how I see Jellybean as my personal assistant when it comes to my staff. It's like
Hmm.
my handy little assistant in my pocket, so I can just deal
Interesting.
with things." And someone else today called it a co-pilot. I love
Hmm.
it, and that
Yeah.
this is I actually love, and that comes back to the customer. The customers are telling me how they see it. The customers are telling me what it is to them, which then
Yeah.
I can use.
That's such a good point to get to, where customers are explaining to you the value that they get from using your product. So, I mean, for anyone who's not at that point yet, that's a really good sign when you get customers telling you not just that they like your product, but the specifics of why they like it. That's gold. Well, I wanted to come back to the other thing that you flagged before, which is about the kind of non-linear path that you took to build the product. So, like as you said before, no software product's ever finished, and that's a sad reality. So I'm interested to just get the kind of uh, the key milestones in terms of how did you go about building it, and what did you learn along the way in terms of what works or what doesn't work, or anything that you would advise other people to do that you've done.
Um, okay, going back to what we were saying before about the research with the customer. I think looking back now, I rushed into building the product
Mhm.
to begin with. I don't regret what I did. I learned from it. But I do think that I had a very, very strong why, and I had in my head what worked for me, and I thought, okay, well, if it worked for me, if this method worked for me, it's going to work for them,
Okay.
which is
Them
fair
being your customers.
because yes,
Yep.
it's going to work for my customers. But what's really, really important is it's also their why is just as important. Why would they listen to me?
Hmm.
How would they use the product? More importantly, how would they use it? So I did have sketches that I showed, but I feel like I could have taken that even further. with, getting them to show me, press the button. What would you expect here? What would you expect there to happen? Because we built the MVP, and then once they started using it, then they were pointing things out that, hey, I'm actually using this a lot more, and it would be great if it did more of this. So I think that was one. When I set out to build the product, as I said earlier, I reached out to my business network and said, hey, listen, looking at building an app. Does anyone know anyone? And so I was connected with a few app developers, and after interviewing, a couple, I chose one.
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the things I didn't realize at the time is being a non-tech founder and then getting a tech company to build your product. You assume that they're going to think, oh, well, this person doesn't know much about how this whole process works, so we're just going to guide them and talk them through how it's all going to happen. But that's not the case, and it's not necessarily their fault. It's just that there's a lot of assumptions going on when you do engage someone external to create a product that you're visualizing. So you can go through and do wireframes and come up with a design and so on. But it's really important to establish a method of what the process is going to be as far as building the product, but then also afterwards as well. Because what your perception is from what they're saying is different to what they're what they're actually saying. Because what I came to realize is that tech companies or developers, they have a certain way of communicating, and they almost have a different language and different logic. And so that was a key lesson, where I had to learn how to literally spell out even the tiniest little adjustment or feature, or almost had to write a very detailed, even to change a color of something, and why and how and the logic behind it and so on.
Yeah.
So and that's not everyone is like this, as in not all developers are like this. And I'm lucky enough now to have a developer in-house, which is completely a different way of communicating, where so I think if I was to go back and say, okay, what I could have done different there is maybe research a little bit more and maybe try and find, look beyond just creating the product, because it's not about having the product created and then hand it over to you and there you go, you've got a product. And again, I didn't know that at the time, that it's a continual thing. So it was good, though, to get me to where I was at the time with a product that I at least could take out to the market and introduce it to customers. Does that make sense?
It does. That seems to be a fairly important kind of thing to have addressed, because I know that was one of the challenges that you had, that this kind of ongoing development process. You mentioned before that you've now got an internal tech person. So can you talk a little bit about why you made that transition and how that's influenced the way that you go about building and refining the product, and overall, is it a good thing?
Yes. So once I guess, again, if being a non-tech founder, if you don't have that clarity about the other person that's actually creating the product, or the team that's creating the product, if if you're not clear that they actually are getting what you mean, and you're just sort of waiting to see what comes back, so that then you can either say, yes, that's exactly what I wanted, or actually no, we have to go back and fix X, X. There's a lot of how can I describe this? You almost feel you almost feel a little bit in the dark and it's your product, because it's in somebody else's hands, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
To get it how you envision it. So I felt like, okay, and again, it's not the fault of the developers at the time. It's just the process of engaging somebody to build a product, and in an area that you don't understand what's involved in building a product. And so for me, I had to then stop and decide, where am I going with this? As far as I had to go back to my vision of when I dreamt of Gellibn, what did I want to achieve? Where do I see it going? And can I get there if I continue like this? Or do I now need to make a change? So I started looking at different ways of making that process better. So whether it was that I stay with that team, how can I make that process better? Because it wasn't necessarily their fault either that I felt that way, but and I was trying to find a solution of, okay, how can I continue? I'm either going to find a way to make it work, with the way that things are set up now, or I need to make a change somehow. But I don't know how to make that change. I don't know how to make that decision. So I need to spend some time to really work out and find out the things that I don't know, find out what my options are, talk to people. And I don't know if you recall, but I even reached out to you and said, do you know anyone? And you did put me in touch with a few people. So then I then started talking to Jordan Boswood as well, who I spoke with him about the product, and he actually helped me understand the technical side of. He was kind of like a bridge between me and the developers.
Yeah. So Jordan's a CTO who's worked with lots of startup founders. So yeah, that's something he does a lot of.
Yes. So and then I started to understand a little bit more about what I needed to do. And then I started to look at options. And at the same time that I was doing that, my nephew had just left Commonwealth Bank. He was working in there as one of their lead engineers. So he's a software engineer, app developer. And so he was going out on his own. And I met with him, had a coffee. We talked about the app. He said, look, let me have a look at your code. And he's always loved the idea of Gellibn, but he's obviously had other commitments. But then once he had a look at the setup, the app, and there was a lot of things he loved about it. There was a lot of things he wanted to change about it. And then we had a chat, and he said, I think we had a few chats to make sure that we were both on the same wavelength. And he said, you know what, I'd love to take it over and work together, and take it beyond, take it further, and continue the journey with you. And so we, took it over. There's a few changes that he has made already. But just that change has been it actually has been life changing. It has
Right.
been changing because having somebody in house that gets your vision, but also enables you to be. We're a lot more agile. We talk every day for hours about the product and what we want to do. But it allows us now that I have a lot more users on board and they are giving us feedback on how they're enjoying or things that they would like to to see work different or any new features or any refinements. It's much easier to communicate that or show Andrew, like we've got our test accounts that we communicate with each other through the app, so that he can see what I can see and vice versa. And then we talk about little things that we can refine. But anything that comes back from the customer, we are just so much more agile in responding to that. Like just 2 days ago, actually, no, yesterday, I got a customer request about a tiny little refinement, which I was able to then, say, "Hey, Andrew, do you reckon we could do this?" And he's like, "Yeah, I'll just do it now." So
Right.
it
Hmm.
it's been released today. So this is how quick,
Yeah.
our responsiveness is with the customer.
That seems really important. And as I'm a big fan of bringing tech skills into the company as soon as possible, rather than for a long time relying on third parties, because as you've discovered, it's got its limitations. I want to get off the kind of technology side of things and talk about the business side. Um, every time I see you post anything on LinkedIn, it seems like you're either speaking at a conference or you've been featured in a magazine or some other thing, you're on stage somewhere. I want to ask you about your kind of approach to business development and reaching new customers, because it seems like there are some founders that really just like to be behind the scenes and not be kind of the front face of the business. I've seen you be the front face really well, and my view is it's really important to be that. But I want to get your thoughts on how you've gone about that, and what are the things that you found have been helpful in terms of promoting Jelly Bean and getting in front of new customers.
Yep. Well, I honestly think that you as a founder, you have to get yourself out there. And that's just my point of view. And I don't mean always just networking as such. For me, I would rather get myself in front of my customer or my potential customer. And I love it. And I love it because I want to be able to make a difference in their life. So I'm passionate about what I do. So one of the things that I did do last year is I was actually just talking to an organizer at an event in the hair industry, and just from talking with them, they said everything that I was saying about why I created Jellybean. They said you should come and talk at our we've got a conference in Sydney, and it's called Real Talk Business Forum. And this is where, business owners will, come to get ideas and a bit of a inspiration, if
Mhm.
you like. And so I took up the opportunity, and I actually, because what I do, the reason why I've done it resonates with a lot of people, and not just business owners, but team members. And I do feel like as a founder, you do have to share your story
Yeah.
about it's very important that you share your story about why you're doing what you're doing.
Yeah. Of course, you've been the customer, haven't you? Like you were the business owner, trying to deal with all the stuff that goes on when you've got a team of people to try and manage, right?
Yes, correct. And so it, I resonate, well, they resonate with with what I am saying.
Mm.
But I also love learning. So I want to know more about people. I've learned, from the start of my journey to now, that there's always someone who knows someone who can either help you achieve something that you want to achieve, or that you can help to achieve something that they're trying to achieve.
Mm.
There is always someone that will connect you to something or someone that you need. And there's always someone that's going to connect someone else to you because you have what they need. And you learn just from talking with people.
Yeah, I've heard that described as increasing your surface area for luck, right?
Right.
If you go to enough relevant events and you meet with enough people, like you may not be able to predict what good outcomes will come from it, but something good will happen. So it's just a matter of going through that process.
Yes, but there's also got to be an objective in everything you do.
Mm.
Like for
Mm.
me to go to these events, so I'm doing another one in 2 weeks' time here at the Gold Coast for NAC, and again, it's a business forum.
Mm.
It's a 2-day event, so I've been invited to speak about staff team building.
Mm.
So again, whether they use the app, the Gellibn app, or not. For me, it's about bringing value to what they're doing. It's about bringing value to them and helping them to walk away with a mindset or a tool or some a technique or tool that will make their life easier. So
Mm.
for me, that is worth doing because that is my customer and I'm making a difference in their life. Whether then they decide to use my product or not, I know it's going to have a positive effect on what I am doing.
Mm.
So, so those sort of events, any other event that I participate in, I have become a little bit picky about, say, for example, with now the startup ecosystem, there's so many things available and so many resources, and it's wonderful that we do have all that. But I've done a few accelerators now, and now I do think about, okay, I've got my objectives of what I want to achieve for the next 30, 60, 90 days. Is this event or attending this event, um, is it going to push the needle forward to where I needed to go?
Yeah,
Because you can spend a lot of time attending things.
for sure. Yep. And we all know the people, that you go to an event and you see the same handful of individuals at everything that happens, and that can't be productive after a certain number of things.
Because then you have to at some stage sort of put what you've learned to action. So you've got to
Yep.
start doing. But those events that the interviews and so on, it just happened by one thing leading to another. So after I did Sydney, somebody was in the audience that said, oh, hey, Voulla would be good at this other thing about team building. So then I got invited to do that.
Yep.
Then from that, somebody else was in the audience that then recommended me to another event organizer to say, hey, I've heard Voulla speak about team building. What she says makes sense. Maybe we should have her at this other event and
Yeah.
so on. So that's how that evolved.
You're gonna have to write the book next. I've got a couple of other things I wanted to ask you about in terms of growing the business, but before I do, maybe this is a point to see if anyone else has any questions that they'd like to fire off at you. If anyone would like to unmute and ask a question of Voulla, you're very welcome. Or if not, keep pondering your questions and was that Holly? You got one?
Hi, hello. Yes, I wanted to know, how did you decide on the developer? Like, and also what language to build it in, or how did you?
Yeah. So at that stage, I had no idea of language at all. So how I decided on the developer was more my conversations with them. And their interaction with me, because I had to make sure that they got, what Gellibn was about and what it was that I wanted to create, and also the team that was involved. So the process, I suppose, of from initial conversation, and their interest in what I was doing, then what the next steps were. So there was a couple that I sort of, from initial conversation, went to the next step. The initial conversation was online, a Zoom call. Then the next step was a face-to-face meeting. And so then I went with the developer once I met them face-to-face, and I could see that they were proactive, and they had some good ideas, and they were kind of open to listening and understanding more about, there was a human element to them, not just straight technical.
Thank you.
No worries.
Thanks. Does anyone else have
Another question?
Voulla, it's Kirsten here.
Oh, hi, Kirsten.
Hi, Colin. I've got a question. I'm probably going to feel really silly when it's really obvious, but I wanted to ask about the name Gellibn.
Yes, a lot of people ask me about that, and actually Colin was questioning the name for a while. Remember that, Colin?
Yeah, I remember it well. Yep. But it's worked, doesn't it?
It works because it's a talking point. And so initially I have a 13-year-old daughter, and when I was trying to think of what to call the app, she actually said, "Mummy, you should call it Gellibn," which initially I thought, oh, it's a bit kiddie. But then the more I thought about it, I thought, well, it's about people gelling together. So it's about business owners and their team members gelling together in business, in their business. So gelling together, Gellibn, gelling in business, it kind of has a good ring to it, but I spelt it with a G, obviously. And then also too, there's the other element of, when you're good, you get a Gellibn. So I now play on that with some of the marketing that we do in the events. I actually take the jelly beans with the colors of the brand, the green, the yellow, and the purple jelly beans, and we make fun. We turn it into a bit of fun, like, which one are you? Do you need to improve on something, or are you doing a great job? So we sort of play around on that, and it helps them to pronounce it.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I'm glad I asked. Thank you.
No, you're welcome.
That's awesome. Bronwyn, did I see you with a question?
Yeah, I do. I've written it down, so let me read it out, so hopefully it all makes sense, because it's a couple of questions on top of each other.
Bronwyn, your audio is a little bit faint. It might be better if you can be just a bit closer to your microphone.
Okay, let me try that. Is that better?
Yep, I think so.
Bring you closer. I'm using my computer. Anyway, the three questions are: what does your revenue model look like? How did you go about crafting it and deciding on what model to use? And then what changes have you made along the way to that model, and why have you made those changes?
So it's a subscription-based model. Thank you for asking that question. That's something that we are also continuing to experiment with in these early stages. So subscription-based model, which is per user per month. And the reason why I chose this model is because I had to, again, think of the customer. So these businesses are typically, in a lot of these businesses, you get staff come in, then you might lose a staff member, so then you want to deactivate them. So you don't want to pay for staff members that you don't really use within the app. And also because I looked at all these different options. So I looked at tiered options, and the logic of a lot of people is like, well, the more users I have, the cheaper it should be. But then what the issue I found with that is that the customers that I'm trying to help have smaller teams. So they have an average of, say, 12 staff members. So if I come up with the pricing structure that allows them to be able to use the app and gives them access to the app, then I'm not pricing them out by doing a tiered sort of model. So I found that and also it's got to be simple. That makes sense to them, because then they don't have to sit there and think, okay, well, I've got this many staff. What does that mean to me? So I've just gone flat rate per staff member per month, paid on a monthly basis, or per staff member per month but paid on an annual basis. We did change the pricing slightly just recently, where we wanted, what I found is I'm playing around with actually getting, when I say playing around, I've had a lot of customers sign up on a monthly subscription. And so I want to give them an incentive to sign up on a yearly subscription. So what I did is, on a yearly subscription, I've taken the price slightly lower, and it's just a flat $4 per user per month. So just to make it an easy decision for them, it's affordable. And this is one of the points of difference that I use to promote Gellibn. It's simple, it's quick and easy and affordable. And I always say that because it works out way less than hiring someone and paying them a wage or a salary to look after your staff. So that's where we are now. Again, and it allows us to then, when we introduce new features or another level of features and benefits of Gellibn, then we can value add. So we can then scale up and and then add to that subscription if you want those features. If that makes sense.
Thanks, Voulla, and thanks for a really good question, Bronwyn. Related to that, I just wanted to, I know we're going to run out of time shortly, but I wanted to just get your thoughts, Voulla, on what's next for the business in terms of growth. So like, I was actually just reading Malcolm Gladwell's latest book on what's it called, The Revenge of the Tipping Point. And he talks about this concept of getting to a critical mass. And at some point, when you get enough of a group of people, in your case, your target customer group, there's a tipping point where all of a sudden you get a whole lot more of them, because everyone kind of goes, oh, well, everyone I know uses this same app and it must be really good, therefore I'll use it. Is there a tipping point kind of phenomenon for Gellibn, do you think, or is it just a slow, steady growth? What is your kind of thinking about growth plans over the next year or two?
Okay, so at the moment, I not at the moment, but at the very start, I decided that Gellibn is going to be a venture. It's going to be international, and that's my vision. Mm-hmm. At the moment, I'm focusing on industry specific and founder-led sales, obviously, because I've had to take a step back and just sort of really establish my foundations first. So initially, I was trying to put it out to everywhere, every industry that I created it for. But then once I started getting traction in the hair industry, for example, I'm going to focus on that for a little while. because I've got the traction there and I'm refining the product for this specific industry now, because eventually then once that is ticking along and, you know, has got momentum, I can then expand into adjacent industries and do the same for, you know, say the hospitality industry.
Sure.
We'll keep refining the product in the same way, so that when you're a customer from a specific industry, you can say, well, I'm from this industry, click, then it's got preset characteristics within the app that suit that specific industry to make it easier for them. And so at the moment, I'm working on customer founder-led sales. Within a year, what I would like to do is I will add to the team. At the same time, this is where I am refining our processes. So as I said, I am learning the language that that customer is using. I am researching and documenting, doing market testing where I'm documenting exactly what the customer is saying, what sort of questions are, what responses, what questions worked, what sort of outreach worked. I am going to obviously down the track invest in marketing, but I don't want to do this just yet. So the question is, and I'm in the middle of making decisions around funding. I know we spoke about, because I can actually continue without it and have a really slow growth, slow and steady, or look at funding and actually accelerate the growth.
Yep.
And this is where I'm at the moment reviewing and research and learning about the process of how that would work and what that would look like.
Yeah. Okay. That's an interesting inflection point to be at. So we'll watch this space, I guess.
Yes.
One other quick question, and then I might, well, if anyone else has got anything as we get towards the end of time. But one thing that I'm always curious about is, I know you've done, and you mentioned that you've done multiple startup programs along the journey that you've been on over the last couple of years. Are there particular things that you've got out of them? Would you advise them for other founders that are at the start of their own entrepreneurial journey? Are they a waste of time and you just need to get on with it and build your business? What are your kind of perspectives on all of that?
I think it's worth doing. They're worth doing. At the same time, I think it's important to, when you do participate in an accelerator program, take what you've learned and put it to action. And then if there's something that you're lacking, then there's research your accelerator programs is, I suppose, what I'm trying to say. Find out what are the things that are being covered. Does that align with what you think you need? Because I think definitely they're worth doing. I've done 3 now, but at the end of my 3rd one, I'm actually in the middle of one now, but it's not an Excel. It's more around funding. So I don't know if you'd call it Excel, but that's because I want to know more about funding. I'm sorry about the noise. I don't know how to turn off some texting. Yes, because I want to learn more about funding. I don't know enough. So that's why I'm in the middle of doing a program. But as far as any more accelerated programs, I feel like I've done 3 now. I need to take what I have learned from those and start doing, because you can get caught up in this bubble of startup land And because there's some, I got invited to do another one today, another one that's coming up. And I actually have said no, because you have to start doing.
Yeah.
Because I think it's very daunting being a founder and having so many things in your mind. You go from, you've got ideas, and you go from marketing to product to customer to staff to this to that. You've got so much going on in your mind, and you know that the back end's with you. You're the founder, you're it. So it's very important to hone in on your objectives and what you're trying to achieve. And just start doing.
Yeah, that's really solid advice. I totally agree with that. And I met somebody recently who said that they've completed 6 startup accelerator type programs in a fairly short period of time. That usually worries me. So, getting in and actually, using the things you've picked up and building your business sounds like good advice. Before we wrap up, Voulla, is there anything else that you wanted to share in terms of any specific advice for other early stage founders or people who are considering, going from an idea to launching something?
I think the one of the key things is look after yourself. And what I mean by that is you need to have the energy, the stamina, the mental stamina, physical stamina, and emotional stamina to do what you need to do as a founder, because not everything will go your way. It's part of life. And you have to not look at that as, yes, setbacks do happen, but you've almost got to become like Teflon, if where things happen and you go, oh, well, okay, great, I've learned from it. Now it's time to move on. You're going to have people question what you're doing, why you're doing it. You're going to have maybe someone say no. Don't be afraid of no. It's an opportunity. If you get a no, it means you either haven't explained enough, or you need to find a different way of presenting what it is that you presented, or maybe it's just not right for that person. And either way, you've learned something. So yeah.
Yeah, that's such good advice. I've seen so many founders who've ended up struggling because they haven't looked after themselves. So super important. And if you do look after yourself, then dealing with the no's is so much easier. So I really like that advice. We are out of time, so I'm going to wrap it up there. But Voulla, thanks heaps for sharing your journey. Some really useful tips and pieces of advice in there. I will put the recording of this webinar up on the website shortly, and we'll email everyone a link so you can refer back to it if you wish. And obviously, feel free to share it with anyone in your network who's working on anything in this space. Also, just finally, a quick plug. As I mentioned at the start, this webinar series is part of our Female Founders Program, which is supported by the Queensland Government. That allows us to offer places at no cost to participants anywhere in Queensland to do our online mentoring, our founders course, or our pre-accelerator program. We'll have another intake for the pre-accelerator in mid-year-ish, so that'll be open for applications in June. And all that information's on the website, startuponramp.com. So if any of those are useful to you, feel free to check them out. So thanks everyone for being here. Thanks again, Voulla, for taking the time to come and chat to us. And I will let you all get back to your evenings.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you for joining.
Thanks a lot, Voulla.
Thanks, Colin. Chat soon.
Cheers.